All right, so moving on to the second placement. This placement, you did the anecdotal recording that's up at the top there. And that is our initial recording so we can start to narrow down what behaviors we need to address. That's why it's that umbrella up there. Okay, from there, you start figuring out what type of data you're going to take. So you're not going to be taking data on antecedents and consequences like you did before, because by this point, you hopefully have a good idea of the function. Okay, now you're just trying to figure out how many times is it happening, or for how long is it happening, or how often. And so for that, we do 3 different ones. We do frequency recording. It is literally tallying the number of times. You have all done this on something in your life. With the undergrads, I tell them to practice this by going to the bar, not during COVID times. But I say go. You're going to find some behavior that you could just like, how many times did that person take a shot? How many times and it gives them something happy to be entertained with. So duration, we do it for how long. Duration is when you're using a stopwatch or a clock and you're saying, how long is this behavior happening? Momentary time sampling is when you're estimating time. The only reason to do MTS is if you are really short on time. I do not recommend it. We will practice it, but it is not my recommended one. It doesn't hold up as well legally if it would come down to a due process on an IEP or something like that, because it really is a snapshot in time. But there are people who use it a lot, so we will do it. All right, dimensions of behavior. Some of the language of behaviors is important because this is language you're going to be talking about at IEP meetings and at FBAs and with parents. Topography is what it looks like. Most of this comes out in your behavior definition. Remember, we say it has to be observable, so we have to know what it looks like. That's your topography. Frequency is how often it occurs. Duration is how long it lasts. Latency is one of my favorites to take data on because it is the amount of time between a request and when the student actually does it. And it is surprising how much time that can eat up in a day. So a kid who, you tell them to hang up their backpack and go to their seat for morning work. You actually take from the time you give that prompt until 15 minutes later when they finally get to their seat after 20 more prompts. And your goal is to shrink the amount of time that takes. But latency I enjoy just because it is very specific to like getting away from those time suck type activities. Magnitude is strength of behavior. So there is a difference, and these are not technical terms, so please excuse me, but there is a difference between a tantrum and a meltdown. And that difference is magnitude. Every kid has tantrums at some point growing up. We all know that. Your parents, you're going to be parents, you've been in schools, you've been a child yourself. We've all thrown the fit in the cereal aisle at some point in our lives. Okay? That's a tantrum. Meltdown is to the point that they can't function. They can't recover without extended amount of time to literally step out of the situation and recover. It may be aggressive in nature. There might be aggressive language involved. So those are things where we're looking at magnitude.
Would a meltdown also be when a student tries to do something and can't complete it and can't stop doing that until they complete it? Or they melt down, they get so frustrated they can't quit?
It depends. When I think of meltdown, again, it's not a technical term. It's nothing I would ever write in an IEP, but it's the best to explain between a kid who's stomping their feet and saying, no, I'm not going to, versus a kid who's throwing this pile of books and saying, F you. Those are two very different. A kid who is just getting stuck in a loop, I wouldn't consider that a meltdown unless it gets to the point that they are now on the floor crying because they cannot do it and they can't bring themselves out of that. Okay. But that loop is its own issue that you would have to think about. So things for event frequency. When we're taking, it can be called either event data or frequency data. It literally is counting how many times. We like to make it sound fancy. It's counting. So it is for things that are educationally relevant. I do not care how many times they blow a bubble with their gum if it is not negatively impacting them or other students. Don't care. Not going to waste my time taking data on that. Okay? Educationally relevant. something that is either impacting their ability to be successful educationally or other students. Not long lasting, it's quick things. Okay, this is not the kid who gets up and walks across the room 3 times, does 2 turns and sits down. That's probably going to be more of a duration thing. This is the kid who stands up, sits down. Stands up, sits down. Okay, you're not going to take data on that. You're going to count how many times they did it. It has a discrete beginning and end. This is important. It doesn't blend into other behaviors. You know exactly when it starts and exactly when it stops. And it does not occur in rapid succession. So I will give you examples. Someone in my office today was doing the, oh my God, 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 oh my God. And it just went on, okay? There is no way, even if I was really fast with the clicker, that I could have counted how many times that person said, oh my God. For that instance, I would have wanted to have a stopwatch and just started and been like 1 minute and 30 seconds later, we stopped saying, oh my God, good deal. Okay, if it's rapid succession, you can't take data that fast. So that you would want to do a duration thing. Some things are just too, or pen clicking. Okay, I don't have a push pen right now, but pen clicking, yes, that one, you can do that really fast. I'm not taking data on how many times that pen clicked. I will take data on how long they sat there and did it. So you've got to make sure it's not rapid succession.
So educationally relevant, like if I observed a girl talking about the school saying, God, school is so stupid during class, just talk outs like that. I mean, I heard her say it like 4 times today. This school is so stupid. That is so dumb. Is that educationally relevant?
It depends on if you can make a case for it to be educationally relevant. The thing about any behavior change or data collection, you want to make sure it's socially appropriate. Now, there are things that I will not think are something worthy of taking data and changing, but someone else might. So, for example, anyone who has worked with students with autism will know exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about hand flapping. Okay? Hand flapping is one we see a lot of times people want to take a lot of data on and want to do a lot of behavior intervention on. And it is usually because the parents or teachers who have to take them in the community say it's embarrassing. And it draws attention to them. My personal belief on that is we should change society. Stop looking. I mean, honest to goodness, I think we need a behavior change for society. Stop looking. It shouldn't be embarrassing. That person has found a method to calm themselves. Don't we all wish we had that skill? But there are districts that will be a #1 behavior change because it draws attention. It's in public. So educational importance or relevance is subjective. You can't 100%. In that case, could you make a case that it is either taking time away from the task or that it is fracturing relationships that are needed for education? For example, with the teacher. Teacher is going to eventually get sick of this and not want to help this kid. So you could make a case for it. Would it be my #1 behavior that I would address? No. It's annoying. But in the end, if she's being successful, still maintaining friends, still maintaining relationships with adults that are appropriate, is it worth going after? It really is going to be, it's going to depend on your district, on your building, on parent wants, and on personal preference. There is some great, unfortunately, it's not this is relatively important and this is not. So, and the other thing is it happening 4 times every hour, every day? Then that's probably going to be a bigger issue. If we were having a really sucky math class and it happened 4 times today in this math class, it might be one I blow off. Pick your battles kind of thing. Some examples of things that do work for frequency and counting. This is not extensive. There are many, many more. These are just examples. Chair tipping, not the kid who tips back. I wish we could in these. That tips back and hangs there for 20 minutes and like rocks and stuff. This is the kid that tips back, comes forward. Tips back, comes forward. So short duration. Short talkouts. Talkouts can be answering the question correctly as well, but doing so without raising your hand if that was required. Inappropriate touching any part of another person's body. Operant coughing. Hand raising, dropping pencils, or if you're looking at permanent product data, how many they got right. That is every time we do a paper and we do 27 out of 30, or a spelling test and we do 9 out of 10, that's frequency data, folks. It's just permanent product. We're just counting. So anything like that counts.
The cough is just like them coughing a lot, or is
This is them
being a jerk coughing?
There you go. This is the person who does not have a cough. It's not allergies. It's blessed not COVID. It's the person who is coughing for attention usually. Yeah. So, or jerk cough, whichever way you want to go with that. All right. Some methods to take frequency event data. All right. Tally marks on anything. You can have walk around with a clipboard. I would recommend if you're doing that, you do not have student names. Ideally, you have student 1, 2, 3. You might have a initial, but try not to. As the kids get older, they pick up those initials really fast. So you would want to keep it discreet. One of my absolute favorites, just because it was easy, is I used to take Scotch tape and put it on my hand. And I always walk around with a pen. If I was up lecturing right now, I'd have a pen probably in my hand. And so then I could walk around the classroom and I might have 2 or 3. You really can't do more than 2 or 3 at a time, so don't try. But I might have 2 or 3 and I could keep track of 3 different kids' data.
So you're taking data on more than one student while we're doing this?
You can.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it the first time. I mean, that's something that over time you develop, but there comes times when if you only see if you're in resource and you only see TJ and Josh in second hour every day, and you need data for both of them, then you might just be taking data on both of them. But I love that because then I literally peel it off, doesn't have to have any names as long as I remember who's who, and I would just put it on my data chart. And I've got it right there. Small objects. Some teachers are really good about things like paper clips in the pocket, and you switch it from the left to the right every time the behavior occurs. I suck at that. But some people are really good at it. I forget which pocket I'm going to. Then I'll momentarily be like, why do I have all these paper? Oh, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's
Are
bad.
you washing when you get home?
Oh, yeah, that I do anyway. But some people will do just ripped up pieces of colored paper. I mean, marbles. You could do just about any small object you wanted. I've seen teachers get those Ace Hardware, like little pocket aprons. And so it's not, if they wear pants that don't have pockets or whatever, or wear a dress, they always have that on them, so they can just switch them in that, and they train themselves to do it that way. With any of those, you're doing one at a time. That's one of the drawbacks, but you also don't have to wear tape. So, tallies on Blackboard, I don't recommend this because it's visual to other kids. For confidentiality, I don't recommend that. It can be done, people do it, people still do tallies for recess and whatever else, but I don't recommend it. And then mechanical counters, they actually make counters. I have one, I meant to bring it and I forgot it. It is a little like jelly ring, you know, like this material, silicone ring that goes on my finger, and it's got just a little counter on the bottom, and so I can wear it. You wear it like a watch, but on a finger, and I can wear it with the counter in my palm, and then you just hit the counter every time, and at the end of the data collection, whether it be class, whether it be a number of minutes, whatever, you look at the number, you write it down. It's discreet, it's easy. Again, I wouldn't recommend trying to do more than one at a time, but that's a really easy one, and I think they were like $4. So we like those. Golf counters, if anybody is a golfer or has a significant other that's a golfer, the same one you use for how many swings you've taken, you can use as a behavior counter, keep it in your pocket. Try and get the quieter ones because some of them do click pretty loud. But Amazon has a ton of different counters you can buy. Okay, questions on frequency collection? No? Duration. Duration are for behaviors that last longer. Now, when we say long lasting, I'm not saying they have to be 30 minutes. It might be a behavior that lasts 2 to 3 minutes. But if that's 2 to 3 minutes multiple times a day, that kid over time is losing a class period. So it's worth doing it. And it can go for those things that are rapidly occurring. So like I was saying, the clicking of the pen that you guys helped me out with, If that goes on, you can do duration on that because you can't count how many times, but you can count how long they sat there and did it. And this might even be 30 seconds or 45 seconds, but if it's something really rapid, you cannot count that. So you've got to go with duration. Now remember, as we go through these, that these are not in observable and measurable terms. These are in terms that you will hear a lot in schools. If you were to use any of these, you would have to make them observable and measurable. Inappropriate sitting. Inappropriate sitting could look like everything from me sitting on this desk or laying on this table to me sitting with, which I do all the time, with one leg under myself. So that's why we have to define what that looks like. Inappropriate is not a term we can use for behavior definition. But people don't usually do this for 20 times in 5 minutes. Usually they get like this and they sit for a little while and then they move on to a different position. So that's how you would take duration. Looks away from task. This is often, and you'll see it below, on task, off task. Off task drives me insane because off task could be anything. And that doesn't necessarily, people will say, well, it means they're not paying attention. No, ma'am. No, sir. I could be paying total attention and staring out that window the entire time. Or anybody have like a doodling habit? If I have to be in a meeting, you can guarantee every one of the O's and the A's and things will be colored in on this whole sheet of paper. I color while I listen. Does that mean I'm off task? Maybe, maybe not. You don't know because you're not in my brain. So you've got to be very clear on what you call that. Not looking at paper and engaging with worksheet or Chromebook or whatever. That would be an option. But just saying off task doesn't work. In seat, out of seat, again, you've got to clearly define that. Thumb sucking, latency, again, that's from when they are given the original prompt until they complete the task. And that is always, if we're talking latency, we're always talking duration. When they get the original prompt to when they complete the task. Crying, kids who are really struggling and having a lot of tear episodes, those usually aren't something quick. They usually take some time, so you'd want to take duration. Some ways to do it. Stopwatches. Most people at this point, not everybody, but most people have a stopwatch either on their phone or on a smartwatch. If you don't, you can get the regular stopwatches like at Walmart for $7 or something, and they last forever. And you can get used to using that. You can use a wall clock with a second hand. I find that a little harder to be accurate, but it can be done. Or any clock, any watch with a second hand. Again, I like more of a stopwatch type thing myself, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. Questions on duration? All right, momentary time sampling. Momentary time sampling, again, is a picture in time. It's when you either don't have time to do a full class period or a full 30 minutes. You've got 5 minutes multiple times in a day and you're going to take some data. Often they're used for not clearly discrete things that maybe don't have that very discrete beginning and end. Or things that occur at the exact same time, the second that the interval ends, first presence to be scored. So kids who could do really well for 1 minute and at the very end, they just fall apart. Examples, when does one episode of on-task behavior begin and end? So if you're looking at on-task, you would have in momentary time sampling, you would have those boxes and it would be, did it at the end of every 30 seconds, were they on task or off task? And that 5 minutes would be broken into those 30-second boxes. And you would do plus or minus. Momentary time sampling. When I looked up at the end of 30 seconds, was that kid on task or off task? And I do a plus or minus. A lot of times what teachers will do is set some kind of vibrating timer. They sell them on the market, or a lot of us, again, have them on phones and things, so that it's discrete, but it reminds you to look up. Because if you're doing 30-second intervals, it can be really hard to remember to look up every 30 seconds for 5 minutes. So you usually want to give yourself some kind of option. All right, assignment 2. Devin's favorite part.
No.
Hey, Devin, it's a lot of work.
No stress there, Devin, okay, calm.
Okay, anything's good as long as it's hard.
All right, so you're going to define 2 different behaviors. This can be 2 behaviors with 2 different students, or it can be 2 behaviors with 1 student. That is up to you. One should be appropriate for frequency count. The other should be appropriate for duration. So when I read those behavior definitions, I should very quickly be able to go, that's the frequency one, that's the duration one, without you saying those words, but by how you define it. You're going to collect data on each of the behaviors using all 3. So, say your first one is time out of seat. You're going to take frequency data on that, you're going to take duration data on that, and you're going to take MTS data on that. Because what we want to show you is why some behaviors work better with certain data collection systems than others. Step 3, you're going to do that for 5 sessions and collect 6 minutes of data for each type of data. So you're going to have at least 5. You're going to need a first one to define your behavior. You're not going to start taking data on that first observation. You're going to do just like you did for the last one, define your behaviors. The next observation, well, the next 5 observations, you're going to take rounds of 6 minutes. So 18 minutes total. And then there'll be in between time because nobody's that good. And you're going to take behavior 1 for 18 minutes. And you're going to do frequency for 6 minutes, duration for 6 minutes, and MTS for 6 minutes. Then another 18 minutes, you're going to do behavior 2, frequency for 6 minutes, duration for 6 minutes, MTS for 6 minutes. You're going to do that for 5 straight observation days. Okay? Questions on that? We get what we're doing? We're doing at least an initial one where we're picking behaviors. Then for the next 5, we're taking data on both behaviors in all 3 ways.
So does it have to be days? Like, how, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like for different class periods. So like if we observe the same student in the different classes and do 6 minutes of either duration, frequency.
Well, whatever class period, you would have to do all 3. That's not an option.
Okay, so it has to be the same class,
Yes.
the same environment. Got it.
Yes, it should be literally 18 minutes. And maybe a minute between to switch up and get your stuff
I was
organized.
gonna say, so you're gonna do the
You're gonna-
frequency.
You're
and
gonna do
then
6 minutes of frequency, and then you're gonna put down your counter, and you're gonna pick up your stopwatch and get your data sheet ready. You're gonna do 6 minutes of duration. And then you're gonna put that down, and then you're gonna do 6 minutes of MTS.
And it's all the same behavior.
All on the same behavior. You're gonna do that for both behaviors.
Okay.
So each observation has to have all of that in it.
So are you saying then the behavior has to last at least 18 minutes?
No, because the data will show how long it lasted out of those 6 minutes or how many times it happened out of those 6 minutes. Should be a behavior that happens regularly enough
Okay,
that you will be able to get data every time you go in. So this would not be a good time to do a meltdown or an aggressive outbreak, because that usually doesn't happen every class period every day.
so say you're in an ECE room, a student that's out of their seat a lot, that would be ideal.
Absolutely. That would be ideal for a duration one. But then what are you gonna do for frequency?
Guess you might be out of the seat one time.
No, but you've got to have one behavior that's specifically good for frequency and one behavior that's specifically good for duration.
Okay.
So am I understanding correctly? So like the first day, obviously we're doing the observation for whose behavior goes with which student. But then for the following days, we're doing 6 minutes of each one of those. And they have to be, so no matter what day, they have to be in the same classroom, same environment, and we're recording the same concepts each 5 days.
Yep.
Okay.
And that will not take up all of your 15 to 20 hours. So you might want to do observation for a couple days before you do it. That obviously is not going to be your full 15 to 20 hours. So I'm not saying you can only do one observation day and then pick your behaviors, but you need to make sure you have 5 different observation days that you address
But it has
both
to be
behaviors.
in the same class,
Yes.
unlike last time. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Yep. That's going to give you the most consistent reading.
Right, that's where I wanted to make sure, because like in the last one, we were able to observe different
Absolutely.
classes, so I wanted to make sure that in this one, we're observing for that. in
You
the
can
same
still
class
observe
every
in
day.
different classes. You can do more than 5. So you could have 5 in one class, and then if you also want to check in the afternoon
Just to see,
you could have one in the afternoon.
to get more of my hours.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, you don't have to do all your hours in 5th period, but you do have to have at least 5 observations in 5th period if that's when that target student is there and that behavior happens.
that makes sense, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Or at least to me, sorry guys, I was speaking for all of you.
All right, so what you're gonna then do is graph the data. This says that the graph should be created using a Word or Excel spreadsheet. I don't care. I don't care if you use one of the sites online. I don't care if you do, if you're somebody who's good with the Word suite, absolutely use that. But you have to graph it. And you should be able to ask people at your school how to do this, because every special educator should be graphing data for IEPs. So if you're struggling, you should have resources available to help show you how they do it. And you might, if you think you're gonna end up in this building, it might be good to find out how they do it and to do it using that method. So you've got to graph all of them. So if you will see, you've got the different categories, the different lines. Then you're going to compare your results and provide comments to answer questions. And we're going to talk about the questions. For each of the behaviors, oh, no, one more. For each of the behaviors, which of the data collection procedures provided the most accurate picture? That's why you're going to do all 3 types for each behavior. So you can say you pick, I don't know, pencil throwing for a frequency. And after you get done, you realize it doesn't happen that often during the day, but when it does, he gets stuck in that loop and does it constantly. It probably would have been better for duration. Those type of things. So you're going to have to think about what behavior, what data collection method worked best for each target behavior and why. So you can't just do the stab in the dark. I think frequency works best. And an emoji smiley face. Nope, not gonna cut it. You'll get some points, but you won't get all of them.
You won't get
You'll get something. You won't get a 0, but you won't get it all. And then you're going to think about which data collection procedure provided the least accurate picture of that particular behavior and why. So you want to look and go, this was the one that worked best for this behavior and this is why. This is one that was a total crap show and this is why. Okay? Which type of data do you think would be easiest for teachers to collect while teaching? That means not sitting back and observing like how you guys are going to get to do it, but while you are up there running around teaching. And why do you believe this? Which type of data do you think would be the hardest for teachers to collect while teaching? And why do you think this? While you were collecting data over the 5 sessions, did student behavior seem to change in any relation to the type of activity going on in the classroom? This means you're gonna have to take notes on what's happening when you're taking that data collection. Are they doing a fun Kahoot? Or are they all supposed to be sitting there doing a worksheet? That's going to change behavior, and we know that. So you need to make sure you have those notes when you're doing it. What's happening in the classroom? What are they supposed to be doing? All those type of things. Doesn't have to be as anecdotal narrative as what you did for rotation 1, but you gotta have those notes or you're not gonna be able to answer the questions. Were there times when the behavior increased or decreased greatly according to the activity? So you can't really throw a pencil if you're holding your phone to do a Kahoot. That probably would drastically decrease pencil throwing behavior. Discuss the times and reasons for increases or decreases in behavior. This is how the steps to follow for all procedures. This is how your data sheets should be set up for each of those data collection. Procedure used, student, just give me initials, or student A and B, either way. Observer is you, date, start and ending time. Even if you're not doing duration, you gotta have a start and ending time. Recording of data, so I need the actual data. Formula, figuring of summary data and label, which we'll talk about. Graph of the summarized data. So here's an example of what one looks like. And you have this on the PowerPoint. You can see exactly how they did all of their heading information. They did tallies. This started at 12:45 and ended at 12:51. So there's your 6 minutes. In that time, there were 3 occurrences. Formula to summarize is the number of occurrences plus the minutes observed equals the rate. So it happened 3 times divided by 6 minutes. So it happens 0.5 every minute. That's your rate. Duration recording. You go ahead and do the same thing. Break it down. You do want to have those stop and start points. You don't want to just have total duration. Then you take total numbers of recorded seconds divided by total seconds, which is going to be 360 for everybody because that's 6 minutes. So you don't have to do the math on that one. And there's your summary of how to do it. MTS recording. Here is a grid of exactly what that would look like. These are in 15-second intervals. I don't care if you do 15 seconds or 30 seconds. What I do care is that you tell me if it's 15 seconds or 30 seconds. That's totally up to you, but it has to have that label that says 15 seconds or 30 seconds. For MTS data, and then all you do is when that, for example, 15 seconds is up, you look up. Is Jenna looking at her computer? Yes, that's a plus mark. If Jenna had not been looking at her computer, it would have been a minus. That's all you do. And then you wait another 15 or 30 seconds. Look around the room, you know. The formula for that one is the number of intervals where behavior occurred divided by the total number of intervals times 100%. So total number of intervals, if you're doing 30 seconds, is going to be 12. If you're doing 15 seconds, it's going to be 24. So you just take however many pluses you had, divide it by either 12 or 24, and multiply it by 100. And that gives you your percent. Then you have to go ahead and graph. You will see that this graph is the frequency of chair tipping. And it has all 5 of the observation dates on it. You do have to have these data points that are not just a line. You have to have the actual points and then connected with that line. That is how data is reported. Duration, you've got the same thing here. You have to have the points and have to have the lines connecting them. And you have to have the dates at the bottom. And then you have the same thing for momentary time sampling. This is all in the PowerPoint. You have everything laid out for you exactly, folks. Don't have to make anything up. All you gotta do is take the data and put it in there. This is an example. We are not gonna go point by point through this, but this is so you have it. You have the step-by-step guide to make a graph in Excel. So if you do not know, if you've never had to graph anything, this breaks it down step by step for you. Okay? I'm not going to go through every one of those because it makes no sense if you're not actually doing it yourself. PowerPoint can also create graphs if you choose to. You do it in charts. So that's another option if you want to do that. Or this is the one we'll use in the behavior, we'll practice with in the behavior class next semester. This is literally designed for kids. It's called Kids Graph. You can totally use that. That's fine. And then you just cut and paste the image into your report. Not a problem. My thing is, and I'll be honest, when I did it the first time, it took me a couple times. I can lie and say like it's totally user-friendly. But my thing is, if fourth graders can do it, I should be able to tackle this and win. So any of them, I don't have a preference. They can't be hand-drawn graphs. You have to do them professionally because that's what you're going to have to do for your IEPs. Above and beyond that, I don't care which system you use. Whatever you're more comfortable with. Again, if you know you're wanting to be in a district, I would find out what they're using and learn that because you might as well at this point. You're going to use it this semester. You're going to use it next semester. You're going to use it in 4901. You might as well start getting used to what they're using. That's going to make the most sense. This one has pretty colored chart lines.
That represents the different children.
No, that example actually represents something we'll do next semester, which is single case design, which is multiple phases. We'll do that in 3600.
That's what you're gonna get to do on that new computer, Devin. Look what you're gonna get to do on that new computer.
All right. That is why this is recorded.